All right, let's look at the new CFP projections from our Jerry Palm, who has not only college football playoff projections, but every bowl projected on CBSSports.com. USC is in after Tennessee's blowout defeat to South Carolina. So Georgia, USC projected to the Peach Bowl, Ohio State, and TCU in the Fiesta Bowl. Let's break it down and go in depth with Jerry Palm here with just one regular season week to go. It's rivalry week. And let's start with the teams who you believe control their own fate. Top four, you would think, Jerry, control their own fate as of right now, those four teams that you put there. Is there anybody else that you think controls their path to the playoff?
All right, so I had USC projected to the playoff, but that doesn't mean they control their own fate. The top four teams in the current rankings, the undefeated teams, they control their own fate, along with LSU because they get to play an SEC championship game against number one Georgia. But USC, Clemson still have a path to the playoff, but you can't really say that they control their own fate because they could be competing with each other. They could be competing and would be competing with the loser of the Ohio State-Michigan game, and we don't know how the committee is going to feel about that. So, those teams don't really control their own fate. There may be some circumstances where they win out and they don't get in.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you think LSU is a sure thing if they win the SEC championship. And if it came down to a two-loss SEC champion LSU and a one-loss USC, you think LSU would get that bid?
Yes, I do, because they would have beaten number one to win the best conference. So, yeah, I think LSU has got a sure path to the playoff. Of course, they have to beat Texas A&M first. But yes, if they can win these two games, beat Georgia, and win the SEC, that's a playoff team.
Okay, these are the teams that you have still alive for the college football playoff. And Alabama fans are out there saying, hey, couldn't you have at least put us in that last spot that you have available on the screen? Why don't you think Bama has a chance?
Because they can't play for the title. The best they can do is 10-2. It would take a significant amount of chaos in just this week to open a door for someone like Alabama, and it's just not realistic to think that could happen.
All right, the new rankings come out tomorrow night. We're not going to have to wait as long into the night this week as we did last week, at least I hope. How do you see the committee ranking teams this week?
Yeah, I don't think the news show is going to double overtime. Well, you should see the top four remain the same. Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU. I think USC will move up to number 5, passing LSU, and of course Tennessee, who lost. I have them dropping back, staying ahead of Alabama, a team they beat, but also dropping behind LSU, also a team they beat and beat pretty handily. I have Clemson moving up to number 7. You can really rearrange those four teams in pretty much any order, and I think Oregon, off the win over former number 10 Utah, jumps up to take that place.
Talking with Jerry Palm about college football playoff projections and rankings. Ohio State, Michigan this week. Does the loser of that game have any chance at getting an at-large bid?
Yes, but they might need help. They'll still be part of the picture. At 11-1, Ohio State is a better candidate than 11-1 Michigan because of the strength of schedule difference, having Notre Dame on Ohio State's non-conference schedule versus the tomato cans that Michigan played. So it really would be better for Ohio State. They'd have a better chance, but they might need help with Clemson and or especially USC if they're going to get into the college football playoffs still.
How would you compare a one-loss Pac-12 champion USC to a one-loss ACC champion Clemson?
I think USC has the edge because of the quality of the wins they're picking up here at the end of the season. Their schedule is backloaded. They got their first ranked win of the season over UCLA this week. They have Notre Dame, and then they have the Pac-12 championship game. Their 3 best wins at 12-1 are the last 3 games they play this season. So I think that once they compile those wins, 12-1 USC is the strongest one-loss team.
Looking at the New Year's 6 bowl games, you have a pretty sexy matchup in the Orange Bowl. Clemson in Alabama. What's the likelihood that we'll get to see that matchup?
Well, I think there's a really good chance. First of all, Clemson would have to be the ACC champion because they go to that spot. So they have to win that game and then not make the playoff. And then Alabama, the second spot in that game goes to the highest ranked team from either the SEC, the Big Ten, or Notre Dame after the Rose and Sugar Bowls have gotten their teams. So right now that projects to be Alabama. I suppose I don't know. It could be Penn State, but Alabama would probably have to get beat in order for it to be Penn State. So it's more likely to be Alabama or Tennessee, depending on what shakes out after the conference championship games.
Big Ten championship game is going to be the winner of Ohio State, Michigan against likely Iowa. And if Iowa wins the Big Ten championship game, the Rose Bowl would have to take them, right? Even over a one-loss Ohio State or Michigan?
That is correct. The Big Ten champion goes to the Rose Bowl. So if that's Iowa or Purdue, then that's who goes to the Rose Bowl. I have a feeling that the Ohio State-Michigan winner is going to be about a 30-point favorite in that game. That would be one of the biggest upsets of the season. Yeah,
you're right. And I certainly, if it's Ohio State, after what we saw in that Iowa-Ohio State game in Columbus, which was a 40-plus point win, that would be the case. How about group of 5 automatic berth? That thing just keeps getting murkier because it seems like every week the team that's in line for that loses. It was Tulane, then it was UCF, and now you got Cincinnati against Tulane. The winner of that one would appear to be in the best standing, but that wouldn't necessarily clinch that berth, would it?
No, it doesn't. You have to be the conference champion, so you still have to win the championship game of the league. UCF was going to host that until they lost to Navy. Now they cannot host it because the winner of Cincinnati and Tulane will host that game, and UCF will be the opponent because they win all the tiebreakers. So UCF will travel to play in the championship game now instead of hosting it. The winner of the American Athletic Conference, especially if it's Cincinnati or Tulane, is definitely the group of 5 representative in the Cotton Bowl. If it's UCF with their 3 losses, you might bring someone like Coastal Carolina or perhaps Boise State into play, but I think it would still be UCF.
And Notre Dame, a team that keeps rising up your bowl projections. You have them in the Gator Bowl right now, but you're projecting a loss to USC. If they beat USC this week, could they get to the New Year's Six?
Maybe. 9-3 is kind of a stretch, especially when you consider how few openings there are that are actually true at-large berths. Now, Notre Dame is part of the Orange Bowl selection, so if they were the highest-ranked team left after the Rose and Sugar get their teams, they could get that spot. They'd have to be pretty high in the rankings to get the only other at-large spot, which is in the Cotton Bowl. All of the other places in the New Year's Six are contracted into conferences that Notre Dame doesn't belong to. So it's harder for Notre Dame to make an at-large berth this year because of the way just because of the bowls that are in the New Year's Six.
It's rivalry week. Somebody is bound to get upset, you would think, with all the chaos we've seen so far in college football. Jerry Palm breaking it down for us here on HQ. You can see all of his bowl projections on CBSSports.com. Here are some of them. I finally figured it out. The ReliaQuest Bowl, that's the old Outback Bowl. But it's ReliaQuest now in Tampa, and Iowa always goes there. So he's having Iowa, South Carolina in that one. Notre Dame, Arkansas, Gator Bowl. And our producer Noah is holding out hope that Clemson goes to the college football playoff and Florida State gets elevated to the Orange Bowl. We'll see about that. Right now, they're projected for a Mayo bath.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.